The Datsun F10 is the export version of the Nissan Cherry, specifically the second generation. The first gen Cherry, model code E10, went on sale in 1970 for Japan and 1971 in the UK and Europe, but it wasn't until its second generation, model code F10, that it came to America. And after just one generation of that, the Cherry was replaced by the Pulsar, not to be confused with the Pulsar EXA, and the North American Datsun export of this was known as the 310. But after just a handful of Datsun 310 model years, that model left the North American market and was replaced by the Pulsar NX, which was an export of the Pulsar EXA, not the same Pulsar the 310 was based on, except for the one-year only hatchback version that was based off the regular Pulsar but called the Datsun Cherry in Europe. All these names! In this video we're going to cover both of those early American market front-drive Datsun models and then jump right into the Pulsar NX line and cover all three generations of that. So buckle up and get ready for some classic 70s, 80s, and 90s Nissan Datsun goodness.
How do you do it, Datsun?
Datsun, we are driven!
The F10 Cherry went into production in 1974 in Japan, but most export markets got it in 1976. The F10 came in two body styles, hatchback and sport wagon. The front end is the same on both models. It's not really that different from the 210 front end, but it's got some very prominent headlight bezels. We also get a little Datsun hood ornament. 210 similarities are not surprising, since the F10 was marketed as the sporty version of the 210. Wait, I thought that's what the 200SX was. Well, this is the front-wheel drive version of that, I guess. What can I say, in the 70s, Datsun had a model for just about everybody. On the back of the hatchback model, we've got a hatch. But oh, what a hatch it is. Is that a moonroof or a tailgate? Rest assured, you can fit lots of cargo in these as long as you don't mind lifting it nearly to the roofline to get it in there. I can't imagine rear vision out of these things is very good unless you're planning on stargazing. To think these only came with one side view mirror too.
You kids today with your backup bird's eye and 360 cameras.
Yeah, what's next? An undercarriage camera to make sure you don't run over insects?
Bah, you kids are too soft. In my day, you didn't know something was behind you until you hit it. That's why we had chrome bumpers.
Yeah, that's right.
Rear seat room is non-existent, but that was to be expected. According to a Road and Track article I read from 1976 though, front seat room wasn't that great either. As far as the instruments go, it's a typical Datsun interior, but hatchback models come with a tack and a clock. Sport wagons were positioned as the lower models, so you'll get a blank instead of a tack, and the center console with the clock isn't there at all. You will get some wood grain though because, well, it's the 70s. Speaking of the sport wagon, here's what it looks like from the back. Obviously much more practical for cargo. And you know, these would make great little city delivery vehicles, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's what they were used for a lot back in the day. Interestingly, I read that in Canada, we also got a four-door sedan version of the F10. I couldn't find any pictures of one. I'm sure they all rusted away here long before the days of digital cameras, but here's a sedan model from a European brochure. The F10 was more popular in Canada, I read, probably because the front-wheel drive was easier to drive in the snow. Under the hood is the same A14 1.4-liter overhead valve engine you'll find in a Datsun B210. 0 to 60 will take you about 15.5 seconds, so about the same time it takes for a Honda Pilot 9-speed to move after depressing the accelerator. You may notice that in the F10, the A14 engine comes equipped with what looks like a desk fan. Any guesses what this is for? Well, YouTube has this new quiz feature, and I haven't seen anyone use it yet. I'm kind of curious about it, so we're going to try it out. There should be answers appearing, I don't know, somewhere that you can click on. Let me know what you think the right answer is, and I'll give you the right answer in the next chapter, because the 310 uses this A14 engine too, so we'll be revisiting it. The Sport Wagon came only with a 4-speed, but the hatchback was a 5-speed manual, although the shift pattern, like in the B210, is dogleg. It doesn't seem like there was an automatic option in North America. I did read that there was a semi-automatic transmission called the Sportmatic, but I'm not sure if that was ever offered in North America because I can't find any pictures of one or any references to it in any of the brochures or ads I found. But a 70s Datsun expert might have to clarify that in the comments for us. Information is not particularly easy to find on these. Brakes were front disc, rear drum, and according to the reviews I read, actually quite good. Unfortunately, it was possibly one of the few highlights of the vehicle, as the F10 did not exactly receive glowing reviews in either of the 1976 articles I read from Road and Track or Car and Driver. They liked the brakes and for the most part admitted that the engine ran well, but criticized the F10 for being uncomfortable, hard to see out of, and amplifying road noises like an empty drum. Car and Driver also said that the 5-speed shifter was very poor and sloppy, and apparently finding second gear was about as hard to find as a date if you drive one of these. According to them, the 4-speed in the Sport Wagon actually felt much better. For standard equipment, the F10 comes with an AM/FM radio, a cigarette lighter outlet, luxurious vinyl reclining bucket seats, folding rear seats, a resettable trip meter, and an electric rear window defogger. I mean, what else do you need? No, the F10 won't wirelessly charge your phone.
Well, it's useless.
Factory options included air conditioning, a wood grain accent package with a roof rack. Sign me up for that. Maybe not in yellow though. Dealer options included rear window shades, bumper guards, a luggage rack, a sports stripe, side moldings, and mag-type wheels. The F10 only had a 3-year lifespan here. For 1979, it was replaced by the Pulsar-based 310, which we'll talk about next. It doesn't seem like they changed much, if anything, across the 3 model years here, but if you're an F10 expert and you know of some, let me know in the comments because these vehicles are not well documented on the internet. But don't go anywhere because we're jumping straight into the 310 right now. For the 1979 model year, the short-lived F10 was replaced by the 310, another front-wheel drive model, this one based on the N10 Nissan Pulsar, Nissan's replacement for the Cherry model, although they still called it the Cherry for a few more years in some markets like Europe. And the Datsun 310 was sort of positioned as a slightly more upscale economy model, sort of a front-drive, slightly more luxurious alternative to the 210. There were 2 trims, Deluxe and the upper GX model, and initially there were 2 body styles, a regular hatchback and a coupe hatchback, the latter of which only came in the upper GX trim, and Datsun referred to it as the 310 GX Coupe. Oddly, the regular hatch model they called a sedan, which I don't quite understand. It clearly has a tailgate, I don't know. Anyway, the GX Coupe has a more sloped rear end, a little more similar to the F10 hatch, but I think it's a lot nicer looking than the F10 was. You even get a Targa band. Although I think I actually prefer the look of the hatch model, or what Nissan somehow calls a sedan. I mean, come on, this is just a neat little hatch. Kinda reminds me of a second-gen Civic hatch. And just look at all these standard features. All models get a nice analog clock, so step aside, Infiniti owners. GX models get a tach, a rear window wiper. The sedan model has remote-operated rear quarter windows that pop open, and on the coupe, the rear windows roll down. There are remote fuel door and hatch release levers, a locking glove box, extensive rust proofing.
Yeah, okay, Datsun.
And inside this beautiful color-coordinated interior, seats could be upholstered in either breathable vinyl or luxuriously soft velour.
They even got an AM/FM radio. How do you do it, Datsun?
I have no idea. Based on the ads, it seems like these were targeted towards younger buyers. After all, the 310 isn't just an economy car, it's a fun car. It's a classy car.
Look at these soft velour bucket seats, that sexy dashboard with clock, tach, and stereo. Datsun, you are driven.
Love your Datsun, Roger.
Man does not live by gas mileage alone.
It's good for you. It's good for you.
Damn. Under the hood is once again the A14 engine, and I learned when making my Datsun 210 episode that in '79, the US gets a more economy version of the A14, dropping horsepower from the 78 to 80 ranges to 65. But now, about that desk fan, it's still there. If you answered it's there to prevent vapor locks, you are correct. When I first saw this, I'd never seen anything like this before. I kinda suspected that it was to prevent vapor locks, but I wasn't sure, so I made a community post asking for input from old Datsun guys, and thank you to BitRot Systems for answering very quickly. Now you won't see this fan on a Datsun 210, but on the 310, fuel boiling was a much bigger issue because the transversely mounted engine puts it right above the exhaust manifold and in between the engine block and the firewall. I'm guessing most of you answered correctly because I made the wrong answers kind of ridiculous, but I just wanted to see how this new YouTube feature works. Let me know if you want quizzes in future videos or if you think it's stupid and I should never do it again. Optional features on the 310 include air conditioning, aluminum wheels, a 3-speaker AM/FM stereo, a cassette deck, body side moldings, floor mats, and side stripes. The deluxe sedan comes with a 4-speed, the GX models get a 5-speed, still in a dogleg pattern. For most of the model years, there was no auto option. Amen. For 1980, a new lift-off sky roof became an option on GX models, but other than that was pretty much unchanged until mid-year, when Datsun added a 4-door model, a sedan as they call it, as a 1980.5 model. Isn't a sedan supposed to have a separate trunk compartment from the passenger area? Nissan doesn't care. They do what they want. This is a sedan, this is a great transmission, wheels are supposed to match the grille. For 1981, the 310 gets a facelift. There's a new grille and updated rectangular headlights to get things into the proper 80s aesthetics. The coupe taillights get a slight revision as well. Also for 81, power steering becomes an option on GX models, and there's a slightly larger 1.5 liter engine under the hood, but like on the 210, this only bumps horsepower up to 67. In 1982, they finally add an optional 3-speed automatic to GX models, but that would end up being the final year for the 310. Sort of. I'll get to this weird 1-year only thing in the next chapter. Despite trying to appeal to younger buyers and attempting to position it above the 210 as a slightly more upscaled option, most people seem to prefer the larger rear-drive Nissan Sunny-based 210 as it outsold the 310. I mean, even in Canada, where you would think the 310 might have been more popular due to its front-wheel drive, I've never seen one. But when I was very young, my family did own a 210. It was an 82, no pictures of it unfortunately, but I can confirm that this Datsun rust proofing isn't so good. It already had massive rust holes in it by the mid-90s. But hey, our 210 didn't have remote operated rear windows, plush velour seats, or a desk fan. What peasants we were. Plus, how many sedans come with the exact same versatility as a hatchback?
How do you do it, Datsun?
I don't know.
You're gonna want one.
If you only look half as much as you cost, better get yourself a new Pulsar. They only cost half as much as they look.
I want one.
You're gonna love the way it says take me out and play. 'Cause it's got the lines you look at twice. You won't believe the low, low price.
I want one.
Meet the 1983 Nissan Pulsar NX, the successor to the Datsun 310. 1983 was a funny year for American Nissan because they were right in the middle of rebranding from Datsun to Nissan. In their 1983 model lineup, about half of them were now badged as Nissans, including the Pulsar, but the other half were still badged as Datsuns. So as American Nissan products were ditching the silly numbered names used by Datsun, the North American export of the Pulsar is now actually called a Pulsar. Obviously, the new Pulsar NX is a lot more sporty than the 310 was. That's because the Pulsar NX is not an export of the regular Japanese Pulsar model anymore, which was now in its second generation, but the Pulsar EXA, a new sportier variant of the Pulsar, which in Japan would be marketed as the companion model to the Nissan Sunny Coupe, sold through a different dealership channel, Nissan Cherry stores. So all Pulsars in America that are actually called Pulsars and not Datsun 310s are Pulsar EXAs, with one exception. Because in 1983 and 1983 only, we also have 2-door and 4-door hatchback Pulsars, which Nissan calls hatchback sedans, and these ones, as you can obviously tell, are not Pulsar EXAs, but regular second-gen Pulsars, essentially making them a proper second-generation Datsun 310 if we were still badging things as such. Let's look at the Pulsar sedan first, while the Datsun 310 is fresh in our minds, and then we'll dive into the Pulsar NXs. Now this version of the Pulsar is very rare in North America. Like I said, it was 1 year only, and I don't think they even sold for a full year. I had no clue they existed here when I started this video, but I was watching the Motor Week video on the 83 Pulsar NX, and I heard John Davis say this.
The 2,090-pound Pulsar will eventually be offered in companion 2- and 4-door hatchback.
So I was intrigued and began searching. I already had the 1983 Nissan Datsun full-line brochure from previous Nissan videos I've made, and there's no mention of the Pulsar hatchbacks in them. So I went on to importarchive.com, and they had two 1983 Pulsar NX brochures, an early version and a late version, own. And the nice thing is you can preview them before you buy them to make sure it's the one you want. The hatches weren't mentioned in the early 83 brochure, but they were in the late one, so I bought that one. I also did find one commercial for the hatchbacks on YouTube and this article on curbsideclassic.com, which has the only pictures of a US market one in the wild that I could find, except for this one in a junkyard. As you can see, the second gen Pulsar Datsun 310 is a pretty natural evolution from the first. It's just a little more angular and 80s looking. Inside we've still got that similar striping on the cloth seats, and the two-door model still has remote cable operated rear windows, and cable operated remote gas door and tailgate releases are standard. But here's an unusual feature. On the four-door model it uses a similar cable system to remotely lock the rear doors. No power options needed on this thing. And that's good, because it doesn't have any. The two-door hatch has an optional pop-out moonroof, and AC is optional on both. A 3-speed is the optional automatic transmission, and a 5-speed, finally with a normal shift pattern, is standard. Everything else you need, like a 4-speaker AM/FM stereo, a rear wiper, an analog clock, a tachometer, and bright trim rings on the steelies, come standard. Under the hood, and this goes for both Pulsar versions in North America, push rods are out, camshafts are in. The Pulsar uses the carbureted single overhead cam 1.6-liter E16S engine shared with the Sentra. It makes a whole 69 horsepower. Pivoting to the Pulsar NX model, power steering is standard on this one, as is the removable moonroof. You also get full wheel covers, and alloys can be added as a dealer option, as can this sports stripe and luggage rack. Inside, the Pulsar NX uses a different gauge cluster, but it's got all the same readouts. The rest of the dash is pretty much the same as the hatchback models. Your color-matched interior does come with some interesting cloth patterns.
Between comfortable bucket seats that are unfortunately covered in fabric that would look more at home on a rugby shirt.
On the outside, we've got pop-up headlights, a must-have for any true 80s sports car, and it's very wedge-shaped. The back of it just kinda ends at a steep angle. Now, if 69 horsepower isn't quite enough for you, don't fret, because in 1984, Nissan adds the Pulsar NX Turbo.
With turbo efficiency, turbo economy, turbo performance.
I want you to remember these epic 80s Nissan commercials the next time you see a lazy, clearly AI-generated new car commercial during an ad break. The turbo models make an even 100 horsepower and 112 pound-feet of torque. Turbo models were fuel-injected, used different gear ratios, and had differently calibrated suspension. Turbo models also came with a different instrument cluster with a boost gauge. For 1984, they've also changed the clock from analog to digital. Oddly though, the turbo model would only be a one-year thing and was gone for 85. It must not have sold well. 1985 did bring a very mild refresh. The Nissan lettering on the front moves from the grille area to the front bumper. There are new wheels, slightly different tail lights, a new fabric pattern on the seats, and a new 3-spoke steering wheel. There's also a more modern style radio. 1986 would be the last model year for the first generation Pulsar NX, but don't go away because you better believe there's a new, even better Pulsar coming for 1987. The 1987 Nissan Pulsar NX has pretty iconic styling, I think. This is the one that everyone remembers. Love it or hate it, everyone knows these taillights. If the 80s were a car, I think it might be this one. Now, instead of a removable sunroof like the previous Pulsar had, all Pulsars now come from the factory with a T-bar roof. Oh, but that's not all, because you see this new Pulsar is actually 3 body styles in one. Because not only are the roof panels removable, so is the whole back hatch, essentially transforming your Pulsar into an open-air mini pickup truck. But that's still not the end of it, because an optional canopy can be purchased to transform the Pulsar into a wagon. It's the F10 Sport Wagon all over again, but much better. Interestingly, in the mid-70s, Ford had a concept car, the Ford Prima, that pretty much did this same thing, but they never went ahead with it. Well, 80s Nissan wasn't so timid. This radically 80s modular car was designed at Nissan Design International in San Diego, California. NDI was also responsible for the Nissan Hardbody, but this was their first car. And it's basically a transformer. So let me know if you drive a Pulsar. Is it an Autobot or a Decepticon?
You better report back to Megatron.
Inside, the Pulsar isn't quite as flashy as it is on the outside. The cloth bucket seats look quite conservative, actually. The rear seat, well, you may as well just think of this as a two-seater. It's got a nice 3-spoke steering wheel and a standard but clean looking gauge cluster. In proper 80s fashion though, we do have switch pods flanking the instrument cluster with satisfyingly large switches and buttons to make even the most mundane of tasks, like switching on your headlights or wipers, more fun. The way this Pulsar looks, it's easy to forget that it's a close cousin of the Nissan Sentra. But it's for most part the same chassis, and many of the parts, if they aren't the same, will easily fit on a Sentra. The climate controls and radio will fit, the steering wheel fits, and I believe you can even swap the seats pretty easily. And of course, under the hood, base model Pulsars, which are labeled XEs, use the throttle body injected E16 engines you will find in 87 Sentra 4-wheel drive wagons and then all Sentras for the 88 model year. It only makes 70 horsepower and 94 pound-feet of torque though, so while the Pulsar may only cost half as much as it looks, it's only about a third as fast as it looks. However, there is a higher SE trim which uses a dual overhead cam multi-port fuel injected engine, and this one makes 113 horsepower and 99 pound-feet of torque, which puts it more on par with a Honda Prelude or Toyota Celica of the era. A 5-speed manual is the standard transmission, a 3-speed auto is optional on the XE. The SE is not available with an auto in 87. Amen. Over the XE, SE models also come with 14-inch alloy wheels, upgraded from the 13-inch Steelies, and a front chin spoiler. You can also optionally add fog lights and a security system to the SE. AC is optional on both models. All Pulsars now come standard with one power option other than power steering: power mirrors. For 1988, the SE engine is upgraded to a 1.8 liter and now makes 125 horsepower and 115 pound-feet of torque. For 1989, the XE engine gets updated from the E16 to the GA16, the more modern replacement engine that you will also now find in 89 and 90 model year Sentras. It's rated at 90 horsepower and 96 pound-feet of torque. They also add an automatic option to the SE in 88, which was a 4-speed, but XEs continue to use the 3-speed if auto-equipped. Although there are a few engine changes throughout its run, Nissan never really does a mid-run refresh on this model. For the final 1990 model year, they do add a Nissan badge on the hood, and the Pulsar gets a standard driver's airbag. And I believe the radio gets updated in both 89 and 90. But that's about it. Now, according to the 1990 brochure I have, the SE trim was dropped for the final 1990 model year. Wikipedia differs on this, so I don't know if I have a late version brochure and perhaps the SE was dropped mid-year, or if Wikipedia is just wrong, which is often the case. Either way, let's enjoy the 80s and this Pulsar and drive it to where it belongs, an 80s mall. So pop off the roof and put on the Sportback, we going shopping. Oh, can't we just order from Amazon? No, say what you want about the 80s, but at least people left their house. You living in the past, man. 1991 marks the end of Pulsars in North America, but we do get one more replacement for it before the days of small, front-drive sport hatches become a thing of the past. Meet the Nissan NX. Now while the Pulsar has already shared many underpinnings with the Sentra, the NX is even more Sentra-like. That's because the NX replaces not only the Pulsar, but also the sporty Sentra hatchback coupe. So while you still might not recognize this as a Sentra from the outside, you need only step inside to realize that this is the new sporty hatch version of the Sentra. It's got the B13 Sentra dash, and the NX2000 gets the B13 Sentra SER tachometer gauge cluster. The NX1600 actually gets this digital dash, which to me looks like it should have been put in the last Pulsar. I'm not complaining about it having the B13 dash. I think the B13 has a really nice interior, although I might be a bit biased since the B13 was my first car. Oh, I see. So you only complain when modern cars have the same interior. I don't think the NX gets front seats that are quite as nice as in the B13 though, and in the rear, similar to the Pulsar, it's another folding bench. Good for cargo, not for passengers. The NX comes in two trims, the NX1600 and the NX2000. The NX1600 uses the GA16 1.6 liter engine shared with most Sentra models. It makes 110 horsepower and 108 pound-feet of torque. The NX2000, however, uses the 2 liter SR20 engine shared with the Sentra SER, making 140 horsepower and 130 pound-feet of torque. This is a fantastic engine and will make a light little car like this a lot of fun. Kinda cool that in the early 90s you could get the SR20 in 3 different forms: the Sentra SER Coupe, this little hatchback, and of course the fancier 4-door sedan in the form of the Infiniti G20. Both NX versions can be had in either a 5-speed manual or 4-speed auto. Brakes are front disc rear drum on the NX1600, but like the Sentra SER 4-wheel disc on the NX2000. But the NX2000 brakes are actually larger than the brakes on an SER, making them a popular upgrade swap with SER owners. ABS is an option to the NX2000 if you get the 5-speed, and yes, the NX2000 also comes with the limited slip diff. It really is just a B13 SER in different skin. Now about this skin. I gotta admit, as much as I love the powertrain and the interior in the NX, the exterior styling doesn't really do it for me. I think I'd rather just drive an SER or a G20. To me, this looks like a Mazda MX-3 if you ordered one off Temu. But look, that said, the SR20 in a small lightweight package like this is nothing to scoff at. The NX2000 made it onto Car and Driver's 10 best list for 1991, and for good reason. The NX2000 shares the SER suspension, but actually tuned a bit firmer, and even wears half-inch wider tires. Believe it or not, 195s were considered wide in 1991. 0 to 60 is now down well into the single-digit range, at a respectable for the era 7.5 seconds. In 1992, Car and Driver said it was maybe the world's quickest ovoid. The less pretentious translation of that is the world's quickest egg. Now I keep calling the NX lightweight, and it is, but it's important to note it's actually not any lighter than an SER. A 5-speed NX2000 is within a few pounds of the 5-speed SER, and if you get it with the T-roof, it's actually slightly heavier. Over the 1600, the NX2000 gets a rear spoiler, body-colored rocker panel extensions, fog lights, sportier cloth fabric, a passenger side vanity mirror, and a leather-wrapped steering wheel and shift knob. NX1600 peasants also don't get a low fuel light. A T-bar roof is still available, but it's now an option only on the NX2000 at first, and the roof panels are now glass. In 1992, Nissan adds a power package option to the NX2000, which will give you power windows, door locks, and cruise control. In typical 90s Nissan option package gatekeeping, they now require you to purchase this package before you're allowed to purchase the ABS option. They've also extended the T-roof option to the NX1600, and fog lights and the spoiler are now available as options on the 1600 as well. For 1993, the T-roof becomes standard on the NX2000, and the gauge cluster gets the same slight revision that Sentras get for 93. And that's its final year in North America. The NX only had a 3-year run here. The replacement we got for the NX was the front drive 200SX, but I already covered that one in my Sentra video. Probably the video you should watch next if you haven't seen it yet, or if you have, below that is another video which is the one the algorithm thinks you should watch next.